nostri amici hanno terminato il loro lavoro.
As soon as we're ready. Okay, let's start. Welcome everybody. I would like to start with a very quick clip. Please have a look so that we can remember a very important event.
È stata un'immensa fonte di sofferenze e di incomprensioni, ma al tempo stesso ci ha portato a prendere coscienza sinceramente che senza di Lui non possiamo fare nulla.
Ecco, era soltanto un piccolo momento della visita.
Now, this was just a clip from Pope Francis's visit to Sweden 2 years ago. It was a historical moment, a very important moment, because it took place during the celebration for the 500th anniversary of the Lutherans' Reformation, and also this was a moment of unity. And it was quite a surprise. His visit to Sweden lasted about 2 days, a very important visit. His words, what he did made history. And the same Pope himself was struck by everything he saw. And then he surprised the world with another decision, because one of the priests, one of the bishops that helped organize that moment and endorse unity there, he was ordained cardinal. He was appointed cardinal. I'm talking about Mr. Arborelius, who is here with us today. It is a great honor to have him here with us today at this conference and at the meeting. I would like to introduce him very briefly. His story is very particular, is very interesting. His personal history is really important for the history of the whole church. He is a Carmelite, as you may see. He was born in 1949 in Switzerland, and he was brought up in Lund. Excuse my pronunciation. He was baptized as a Lutheran, and when he was about 20 years old, he met with St. Bridget's nuns, and he decided to join the Catholic Church. I would like to talk about quite a personal thing he told me before. I asked him, what did you see in those nuns? And he answered very simply. He said, I saw Christ. He was baptized as a Catholic. He joined the Carmelite order. And then in 1998, Pope John Paul II appointed him Stockholm's bishop. And then, as we've just seen, in 2017, Pope Francis appointed him cardinal. So, a very beautiful story. And we invited him today so that he could tell us about his personal experience, what it means to live faith and to live for God in a very particular place, because it is a place where Christianity is present, but it is a divided Christianity. And now there's a new interest towards Christianity. It is one of the most secular countries of all Europe, of the whole world. And nowadays, in that country, people believe that faith doesn't have anything to do with their lives. So we asked him, what does it mean to live in this way in Sweden, to try and convey this message in that country? And how can we live in hope? How can we convey hope to Sweden? So I would like now to give him the floor.
Thank you. For me, it's an honor to be here in Rimini. Here is such a beautiful place. A lot of believers here, a lot of faith that I can see. I hope you will understand me. I'm not very good at Italian, I'm sorry. I will try and speak slowly. Well, it's quite better than a lot of us, so... Okay, so I'm gonna give you 3 remarks: ecumenism, migration, and spirituality. But I want to start with hope. What do we mean by hope? Hope is the 3rd theological virtue. Sometimes we forget about it, it is neglected. We usually talk about charity and faith. Maybe we don't tend to act accordingly, but we always talk about charity and faith. However, we tend to forget about hope, but it is a huge strength, especially when we go through hardship, tests, dangers, persecutions, and in this secular society. Charpegui, a French author, talks about hope, and he defines it as the little sister of charity and of faith. They are 3 sisters who are on a pilgrimage and who help us. And we know that our life as well as Christians is a path supported by hope, charity, and faith. Hope is the little sister, but it is hope who decides the direction of the path of our life. Hope always helps us to go through the hardest times of our life. And in this secular world in which we live, there is like a common dark night that might affect even the heart of some Christians. For example, people do not go to church anymore, there is a lack of vocations, so there is a decrease of Christian faith in our Europe, unfortunately. This is why we definitely need our little sister hope, so that we can go on walking in this path, in this pilgrimage. We need this sister with its humbleness, poverty, and simplicity. I do believe that Pope Francis, he is like a little brother of this little sister of hope, and he is helping us to live our life with hope. So, hope helps us look at the entire reality through the perspective of the eternity. We are walking towards the glory, towards eternal life, and this is quite important because, as you know, our friends who are not believers, they lose their hope in hardship and in difficulties in tests. And for us, it is a privilege to know that this little sister, hope, always helps us. Hope helps us see eternity as the ultimate reality, as the end of our journey. The Lord paved the way towards the eternal glory thanks to his resurrection. If we believe in resurrection, we will always be able to hope. And even today, when we read in the newspapers, for example, of all the accusations, for example, sex harassment that deal with the church, we don't have to lose our faith and our hope. And this is why we need hope. We need this little sister called hope. I don't know if you can be called Hope. You can use Hope as your name. It is possible in English. And maybe it would be better for us to understand if we have, for example, the idea that faith, hope, and charity are like friends to us. Friends that are with us in the path, in the journey of our life. And we know that today in Europe, even Christian people do not have hope anymore, are not able to hope anymore. I've talked to bishops and believers in Europe who are suffering and who are not hoping anymore because of the hardship the church is going through today. So I really believe that we need hope, and maybe there is a small community of Catholics in Sweden and in other Northern European countries. However, they still might bring a message of hope. They could spread a message of hope to the other European countries. Of course, we always need to be humble and realistic. However, hope is always necessary for every one of us. Without this little sister, without little sister hope, both the life of the church and of every one of us becomes hard, sad, something difficult. So we constantly need to look at the smile of hope. But Sweden's Catholic community is so small. It may account for the 1 or 2% of the entire population, 10 million people approximately. How can it be a prophetic voice of hope? I think that it is something providential, and Pope Francis has talked to us about this providential sign. Catholic Church in this country, in our country, which is post-Lutheran, post-modern country, and also post-secular society, plays an important role. Our country is open to migration after years and years of secularizations, maybe 100 years. There is little room left for mystery, transcendence, religion, God. And this is thanks to migration, because thanks to migration, Catholic Church could grow up. Today, maybe the 80% of Catholic people belong to the first or second generation of migrants. So other migrants came to Sweden as well, Orthodox, Muslim people, all of them with their own faith. They came to our country, which is a secular country. And nowadays, the Germans as well, they discovered that religion is part and parcel of nowadays reality, of our reality. It doesn't belong to Middle Ages anymore. Of course, in the Middle Ages, they used to believe in God, they had monks, they had nuns, but today they understood something else. They understood that God and the religion, they belong to our reality. And I know that other European countries, other big cities, share the same experience. They understand that religion is something important for everyone's life. So It is something which is crystal clear. Thanks to migration, faith has become something real in Sweden as well today. We can say that thanks to migration, Catholic Church has enhanced, and it's an ongoing process. But at the same time, we realize that in other European countries, there are policies against migration. For example, in Sweden, there's been a change in terms of politics. I do believe that Pope Francis thinks that Sweden is an open country, is a warm country. So even though Sweden is raising up walls and closing its doors to the migrants, we still have a lot of people from Eritrea, from Syria, from Ukraine, Catholic people. So there is an ongoing Catholic migration to Sweden. But of course, it is difficult for us, as in Italy or in other countries, because a lot of people consider migration as a threat. But in Sweden, we can say that thanks to migration, the Catholic Church could develop itself, could enhance its potentials. Every year, 1,000 people, more or less, need to build or buy churches because, for example, over the last few years, we were able to buy more or less 10 or 20 Protestant churches because Protestants do not need churches anymore. So we can now buy Protestant churches and Lutheran churches. This is a consequence also of ecumenism, because we can say that every type of church is united and the church is working in support of the refugees in Sweden. So there is a unity belonging to the Christian religion in Sweden. So this is a beacon of hope, because different churches together, they are working and they are open and they are welcoming the migrants. But it's not always easy to live together with people coming from different parts of the world, because you have, for example, people coming from different cultures, different countries, and I think that this is a new experience for Sweden as well, because Sweden used to be a homogeneous country. Everybody had the same faith, they shared the same thoughts. But today we have different cultures in the same country. And before in Sweden we had this idea of public consensus, of shared ideas, of shared opinions. So we had never thought about a pluralized society, because everybody shared the same ideas in Sweden. It's always been like that. So maybe the 80% of Catholic people in Sweden came from other countries, especially belonging to 4 big groups, from Poland, from Croatia, from Latin America, from Middle East countries. So in Sweden there is every type of Eastern Catholic Church. There is a wide variety of rituals. For example, our Mass service is at 8:45 in the morning. Maybe it's too early for the Italians. But of course, those who want to go to Mass service, they go. And this is only one example of these different types of churches. And this is the challenge that lies ahead of us, to create a big church in Sweden. My task is to try and unify all the different believers, all the different priests that came from all over the world. And of course, without the Holy Spirit, it would be something impossible, but we can say that we believe in the resurrection of God. And we do that, we share it together every day in our parishes. As I said, different people, people with different cultures, from different countries, with their own ideas, their own life programs. So, as Catholic Church in Sweden, we have these cultural clashes every day, and we need to live with them. We need to get used to those clashes, because nowadays our world is globalized, and we need to look for peaceful solutions to these cultural conflicts, which are unavoidable today in our globalized world, and we live it in our everyday life, in every parish. And there is something peculiar, you know, because Swedish Catholics, they always are the minority in our parishes, so it's a peculiar process of integration, because the native Catholic Swedish need to integrate into different types of Catholics, you know, Catholics coming from other countries. So I think this is what our society is nowadays. Of course, it's a useful circumstance, but it's not always easy. We need to stop thinking that we are the center of the world. It's not true anymore. Sweden has always thought we are the conscience of Europe. But today, the reality has changed. We need to be humble. We need to accept that it's not easy. It's not easy to find a balance between the natives and the migrants. And unfortunately, as many other countries, there is a big division among people. In Stockholm, when migrants go to a neighborhood, a lot of natives leave that neighborhood, and it's something that happens throughout Europe. This is a very important challenge, and we must learn how to live together, how to talk one another, how to fight together for a good purpose, and to accept that it's not easy to do that right now, but it's necessary for the future of Europe and for the dialogue of community. Also with those people who belong to a different culture, to a different religion, to different political ideas. Pope Francis used to tell me that he was so happy with our policy of openness and reception for the migrants coming to Sweden. He knew a lot of people from Argentina who were migrants and who came to Sweden, so he is familiar with this experience, the experience of openness in Sweden. Unfortunately, today Swedish politics has changed, as well as in other European countries. We are raising and building walls. But if you think of the history of salvation is made up of migration. Abraham was the first migrant. And Christ himself, he was a refugee in Egypt. The Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, the same. So migration belongs to our history, is a historic event, and we know that we must find a peaceful solution. It's not always easy, but it's our duty. Is the task of every one of us to find peaceful solutions to these. And we know that this is going to be even more important in the future for all European countries. We also need to find more people willing to build a good society together. In Sweden, for example, Swedish people don't want to take care of old people anymore, of old Swedish anymore. They prefer to leave and to go away. Well, that's very bad. And there are also other bad features. For example, the family is a weak institution. The society as a whole is weak today. So migrants might represent a new hope for our society. For example, in a neighborhood where Swedish people tend to go away because new migrants have arrived, well, old people tend to stay there because they are helped by the migrants. Well, this is quite interesting. You know, old Swedish people, they are more cherished by the migrants than by their own connationals. So our church at the same time also grows thanks to conversions, and it's somehow strange, but if you have ecumenism, you have conversions. If there is a friendship between the Catholics and the Protestants, well, the Protestants, they discover what Catholic Church is, and they stop considering it as an enemy, as something dangerous, because, you know, that was the idea that they had. They thought that Catholic Church was only a threat to them, was a danger for Swedish society. But today, you know, things have changed. Now Islam is the new threat. But before, it was the Catholic Church. It was considered to be dangerous for the entire society. But today, you know, we have new ecumenic contacts, new relationships, and the Protestants, they discovered Catholic spirituality, saints, and priests. So some of them start being interested in the Catholic Church. So every year, we have new male and female pastors, and today in the Lutheran Church there are more female pastors than male pastors. Think about this. There is a little girl in Stockholm. She goes to the Lutheran Church, and there is a male pastor, and she says, "Oh my God! But you also have male pastors here," because she thought that only female pastors existed. Think about that. It's something recognized today, widely recognized. Ecumenism, new relationships, helped other people, Lutheran people, to get a better understanding of what Catholic Church is. And today this holds true also for Pentecostalism. First, they rejected Catholic Church. They thought Rome and the Pope, they thought they were the evil, but today they have changed their minds. For example, a white-known pastor, Ekman, he got closer to the Catholic Church. So every year we are witnessing these conversions, and there are 6 Catholic priests who are now married, because before they were pastors, they were Protestants, but then they, thanks to Pope Francis, they got closer to the Catholic Church. So it's a mixed reality. Let's say we have a married clergy, and every year there are people who want to get closer to our Catholic Church. At the same time, though, we also have Catholic people who are becoming Protestants. So it's a two-way process. It's our reality. It's our plurified society, especially migrants from South America or Africa. They start getting closer to Pentecostalism, and at the same time, some people they feel close to 2 different types of churches. For example, they are Lutheran, they belong to Pentecostalism, but they also want the sacraments from the Catholic Church. So, you know, people who are tied to 2 different churches. It's a multiple society with different movements towards different directions. However, we can say that our Catholic Church is growing, whereas the Lutheran Church is decreasing. When I was young, more than 90% of the population was Lutheran. Today, that figure is the 60% of the population. Of course, this is due to globalization and to migration. So, it's something clear. Lutheran Church has lost its power, has become weaker, and this is almost a tragedy. Because, you know, a lot of people do not feel this bond with the Lutheran Church anymore. So the role, the duty, the task of Catholic Church is even more important nowadays. For example, in educational and cultural environments, I think that there are more Catholic people compared to Lutheran people, because the majority of conversions affect people who are at university or cultural people. For example, the rector of the University of Stockholm is a woman and she's Catholic. So this is something quite common nowadays.
So we could definitely say that we can live as a church even in a secular environment. This is a beacon of hope for all Europe. Despite the small number, we can still live the church's mystery. We can help people find their path towards Christ, and we see that this is what happens all over Europe. The church is becoming weaker, more humble, but at the same time, the church becomes more devoted to Christ. Figures do not matter. What's important is faith, charity, and hope. I believe that my personal story can show the meaning of the Catholic Church in my country. Well, in Sweden. Well, I was born in a Catholic country, in a Catholic small town, close to a Catholic hospital. And maybe the nuns used some holy water when I was born, probably. Is it possible? Do you do this here? Well, I'm sure that something touched my heart. And my family was quite common. My dad had married 3 times, my mom had married twice. This is not uncommon in Sweden. Now there are many families living together, so the role of family is quite weak in our individualistic society. And so people feel lonely. Politicians act for the freedom of the individual person, and so families are not strong in Sweden. So I had only my mother while growing up. But my mother taught me how to pray. And as a Lutheran, I didn't go to church very often when I was a child, because that's what Lutherans do. But thanks to my mother, I learned how to pray. And this really helped me find my path towards the church. And later I met St. Bridget's nuns. And their life, the way they lived, it worked wonders. Because in Sweden, those people become Catholics because they meet someone who showed them what real faith is. It can be a personal encounter, or it can be an encounter with a saint. For example, our Catholic literature in Sweden is quite popular. Many people read the works of saints, for example, of theologians. They find consolation in these works, they find help. And many Lutherans are very faithful to the figure of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, for example. And they also pray the saint even in prisons. even in a secular country, there are convents inside the prisons, and there prisoners can attend 30 days of spiritual exercises, and they sometimes convert. So you see how effective these spiritual exercises are. And even the guards and the authorities are amazed by what happens. And we do this even in a secularized country. So this prayer, this way of life, praying with my mom, helped me find my way towards the Catholic Church. So we can say that the testimony of real believers is incredibly important in a secular society. We need to be brave to spread this message, to talk about this. And we need to show that we are Christ's disciples. Even being a priest in Stockholm is really important. I met with some nuns and they said this makes a great difference. In Sweden, everyone gets curious and go and speak to nuns because of how they are dressed. Some Christians walk up to them and kiss the cross. So if you see some people in Sweden with a cross around their neck, for example, people are usually very interested, very curious. And also, young Swedish people have less prejudices towards the Catholic Church compared to older people. They are more open, of course, not all of them convert, but they are interested. And this is really food for thought. And thanks to the Pope, ecumenism has taken big steps forward because we live in a friendly environment. We have started a dialogue and we can cooperate, especially in two fields, spirituality and social doctrine. Yes, there are difficulties, for example, ethical difficulties or concerning the dogmas, but still, we are all human and therefore we can work together. We can help poor people, migrants, refugees, and by doing this we create a loving environment, a friendly environment that helps us all grow as brothers and sisters in Christ, and it becomes even easier enduring the hardship that comes from our differences, our dogmatic differences. It is quite a difficult moment for us because we ccannot do our communion together. We are divided on this, and this makes us very sad. We had found out our friendship, we had started working together, so not be able to celebrate the communion together is a great problem for us. So this is what happens in Sweden. Ecumenism has become something personal. This is not only bishops do. Well, in a school there may be one or two students that believe in God, one may be Lutheran, one may be Catholic, or there may be even Muslim students. But those who believe in God need to create a bond, become friends, and support each other, because if they become isolated, then they will feel lonely. This is extremely important in our individualistic society. It is important to find friends. to create this friendship. And I believe that this is the goal of the Rimini meeting, to create this friendship so that we can support each other. And this happens even in Sweden, where there are not that many believers. It is a secular country, so all the members of all of the churches must work together, help each other. And then there are other religions, other kinds of believers that need our friendship, our help, our support. For example, in modern Sweden, Jewish and Catholics have a common history. An edict of tolerance was approved over the same years, both for Jewish people and for Catholics. So we have quite a common history. We faced the same difficulties. We need to spread our faith and to convey our faith to the following generations, because to be Catholic in Sweden sometimes means also to be a stranger. It is quite a difficult situation. And young people are not always familiar with this kind of faith in Sweden. They see it as something far away, not close to them. So what we're showing is that it is possible to be both Swedish and Catholic. These are the same difficulties Jewish people are facing, because sometimes to be Jewish means to be a foreigner. And also sometimes to be a Catholic in Sweden means to be a foreigner. So many people ask him, "Are you a real Swedish person?" They think I had a Polish mother or from Iraq. And I always answer, yes, of course. There used to be many Protestant pastors before, but then these families became secular. So what we need to remember is that the church grows year by year. There are conversions, there are migrants, and therefore we need more churches. And Protestants are happy if we can buy a church so that it doesn't become a club or a restaurant. It can remain a church even though it becomes Catholic. I think this is a true sign of friendship, because they are happy that this place where they used to pray, now it is a place where Catholics can pray, even Catholics that came from other countries. In the suburbs, we bought a church for some Christians who are not Protestants, but still Protestants, were happy with it. This is what our friendship is. And the example of the saints is extremely important. There is a Protestant theologist whom I've met, who is right now writing a book. He is comparing Luther and Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus. And he found some similarities. There is desire to have a deep bond with Christ. And I think this is an extremely prophetical sign of hope within ecumenism, because we see now that even Protestants wish to find this deep bond, this deep communion with Jesus Christ. They wish to be transformed for His grace. And if we manage to start a contemplative dialogue with other Christians, then will always be fundamental. We are on our way towards unity. And we have started this dialogue in Sweden. Many times Protestants invite me to conferences, Carmelite Protestants, for example. They are very interested in what I have to say, because they say we are going through a very dark night here in Sweden, and Italians coming to Sweden see that the hardest part of living in Sweden is darkness. We may have 3 or 4 hours of light in Sweden, but even the spiritual environment is very difficult, is very complex. To live in Sweden as a Christian, as a believer, means to go through a very dark night. And also, we are facing other difficulties. So, St. John of the Cross helps Christians, even Protestants, understand their role in a secular society like Swedish society. Carmelites often talk about this dark night, and therefore I think that this experience of a dark night, can also become our salvation, is the experience of salvation, just like Christ died on the cross for us. We need to take part in this experience. We have to do this to be changed and purified. So, this is exactly what we should think when we think of the abuses that are going on within the Church. We're going through a dark night of purifications, conversions, to find our way towards a real Christianity. I think it is very important to say, and I think it is important to share this with you, that even in a secular environment, when the Church is weak, poorer, more humble, there is a chance to live in communion with Christ, to live intensely this bond with Christ, even through the relationship with other believers and other Christians. At the same time, many people believe migration to be a threat to Europe. I believe instead that it can be extremely helpful to see the universal and Catholic dimension of the Church. There's not only one country to believe in God in the world. We are a universal community, and this enriches us. And in Sweden, even people who are not Catholic admire the Catholic Church because it brings together several countries. There may be division in our societies, but within the Catholic Church, all of the countries of the world can be united. This is a fundamental aspect of Catholicism for nowadays. In Berlin and Hamburg, that's exactly what is going on. They are facing migration as well, and they are living a very similar experience to ours, and parishes are developing. So, we are facing a constant migration. Therefore, we need to find a solution. Of course, we cannot receive everyone and accept everyone, but we should accept those who need to be welcomed and who need this openness. We are aware of the fact that all of these aspects are extremely important for our Pope: ecumenism, spirituality, migration. And in Sweden, we try and do what the Pope asks for. We should live a simple life, and this could make us happy. Yes, there are difficulties, challenges, but we should never forget that Christ never forgets about us. In every kind of situation, despite the difficulties, He is always with us. His hope is always with us. And sometimes we forget about this little sister. We know that we are facing great changes, and we really need to remember that hope helps us walk towards eternity, perfection, and we can do it here and now. I would like to conclude with a prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, You are always present in our reality. You are here with us. Our path towards glory, we're doing it with You. And we know that You are always with us. Even when You have the face of a foreigner, we can recognize You in a poor person, in our little sister Hope. In each one of us, there is the presence of Your mystery. Help us live this reality. Help us show this to those who do not believe in You. Help us show that if we have hope, faith and charity, if we are not alone, if You are with us, then with Your grace we will be able to walk towards You. In the name of the Father, of the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank you because you really conveyed to us this message of hope. It was crystal clear. It's impressive to see that a place such as Sweden, that you defined as a common dark night, well, it can be a place, a nation for a new beginning every day. Of course, today we need to accept new realities. Maybe we don't like these new circumstances anymore. Migration, prisons, and still in those new circumstances we always have the chance to meet Jesus Christ. And these circumstances are so different than what we have in our mind, but the method is always the same. At the basis of everything, you have the meeting with someone, to meet someone who is able to show you his or her faith. This is the only way we can meet Christianity. This is what Christianity is, an ongoing new beginning. When you were appointed cardinal, we asked some of our friends who live in Sweden, who knew you, and we asked them if they could tell us something about you. Well, a friend of ours, who is here today as well, he told us something about you, about Cardinal Arborelius. And to describe you, he told us that when he arrived to Sweden, he was an Italian, he had just arrived, it was a stranger country for him, so it was difficult for him, and he told us that he looked for that bishop, which is our cardinal today, and he says, that meeting was significant for me. He gave me a tender answer because he gave me the possibility to live there, and he's an authority for me today. And he told me, don't worry, because today our society here in Sweden is so tough. It's so tough at the beginning, and it seems hard to communicate with people, but don't worry. The heart of those people is still there, and you can meet it, okay? So don't worry and don't be afraid. Let's thank Cardinal Arborelius with a round of applause. Thank you, because you are a witness for us. You are our little brother, but a big father, and a big testimony for us. Thank you. And enjoy your meeting. I want to remind you that tomorrow is going to be a very special day, because tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. in the auditorium A3, there will be a special conference where, for the first time ever in Europe and here in Italy, Abdul Karim Al-Issa, the secretary of the Worldwide Muslim League, will speak, and he was met by Cardinal Thoran when he traveled to the Middle East last spring. So I would like you to give him an applause as well, because he is very friends with us, with the Rimini meeting. So this friendship, this encounter made it possible. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. A3 auditorium, the General Secretary of the Worldwide Muslim League will be here. It is exceptional. Please keep it in mind and enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thank you.